welcome back to Wellness Simplified. I'm your host, Kelly Nicholls. Let me ask you something. Are you doing all the right things? You know, the early start, the gym, the journal, the meal prep, the 10,000 steps, and still somehow you're feeling completely wiped out. Like you're ticking every box you think you're meant to, and your body just isn't getting the memo. I've also been there, and so has my guest today. Amy Green is a workplace wellbeing strategist and the author of a brilliant new book that's just coming out called The Wellness Paradox. And 8 years ago, she was the picture of someone who had it all together, was doing all the things while quietly falling apart underneath. So she knows this from the inside, not just the research. In today's episode, we go into how burnout creeps up, why all the wellness hacks that you might be doing aren't actually working, and importantly, the mindset changes that can truly make a difference. And as always, we land on the one thing you can start with this week. And it might be the most freeing 5 minutes you spend all week. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us on Wellness Simplified. I'm really looking forward to this episode. I think, we have both experienced burnout and are in the wellness space and looking to make that something that's accessible and not gimmicky. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to having this chat. I like to start by giving people a sense of you and your life. So I like to look at how did your morning start and how do you set yourself up each day to feel grounded and as much as
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's always great to talk about different topics with people who have had similar experiences as well. So I think this conversation is going to be really, really valuable for people listening. My day actually started a lot different to what it would have looked like when I was pre-burnout, because now I'm very much about sleep and giving my body as much as it needs. And on mornings where I don't have to set an alarm, I don't set an alarm. So usually my partner's up before me, which he was this morning, and he feeds our 2 cats, and then they get back into bed, and I have one either side of me. I guess I'm like the barrier so they don't start fighting, but they get as close as they can to me. And I really let myself stay there for another 20 minutes with them, and then I have to wiggle my way out, trying not to wake them. And that's usually how I start my days when I'm at home and I get to run my own show and not have to use an alarm, which is really, really nice for my nervous system. And I have a coffee and a bit of a slow morning. I've walked to the gym, done a workout, come back home and had a couple of meetings, and now I get to have a conversation with you. So a pretty slow, boring morning, but exactly how I like it.
That. And I like how you're saying about not having an alarm. I play with the two because I do have meetings and I have young kids that I've got to get to school and everything. But yeah, those mornings where you don't have an alarm and you can wake up and just whatever you want to do, whether it's cuddle with a cat or whatever, it does make a huge difference, I think, in how your nervous system feels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I first started playing with not having an alarm, it was actually something my integrative GP said to me when I was coming out of chronic stress and burnout: let yourself sleep. And I was at the 5 a.m. club person. That's what we're told to do. That's what success is. Get up at 5 a.m., start your day. It amazed me at first of all how much my body needed to sleep. But then I'm generally awake somewhere between 6 and 6:15. So your body does have that natural clock that it will adjust to. We just need to slow down and give it time to learn what that is. And now I know I'm going to be up by 6:30 at the latest. That's okay for me. If I have something on like I did yesterday, I set an alarm for that, and that's all right.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is so true, is your body knows, but we're moving so fast and we're doing all the things that we think we should that we're not listening to what our body's actually telling us.
Yeah, but we're not taught to listen to our body. We're just taught to go, go, go.
Exactly. And listen to everyone else. Totally. Well, let's jump into your story because just like me, you got to this work from burnout. So tell me about what was that experience for you and how was it and what it taught you? And then we'll dive into the details.
Yeah, it's really surreal to be asked that question. And I think we're going on 8 years when I first entered my integrative GP's office, where all I could say was I was tired. I'm so tired and I don't know why. But there's nothing wrong with me because I'm doing all of the right things. I'm getting up at 5 a.m., I'm doing my gratitude journal, my meditation, my breath work, I'm going to the gym, I do weight sessions, I get 10,000 steps in a day, I'm climbing the leadership ladder and I'm showing up to work and I'm enthused and I love my job, and then evening I'm studying and I have family time. And as you can tell from how I explained it, I was doing everything. It was a lot, but to me, it was the right thing to do. I think that's what we're told to do. We're told success looks like that. I was doing all the wellness things. I was getting my massages and my mani-pedis, and I was eating whole foods, and I was doing my meal prep, and on paper, looked like it was perfect. People would say to me, gosh, Amy, how do you keep it all together? How do you do it? And I think I thrived on that comment. But along the way, internally, I was falling apart. And I tried to hide it for a very long time. I actually didn't know that that's what was going on at all. And so burnout isn't instant. And I think sometimes people, because it's a more common word than it definitely was 8 years ago when I experienced it, are saying, oh, I'm burnout on a Friday afternoon. You can be tired on a Friday afternoon from an intense week, absolutely. But burnout is something that builds over time and it creeps up and you're in the thick of it and you don't realize. And a nap doesn't fix it, a holiday doesn't fix it. But these are the things I was trying to do because I just thought I was tired. I was doing the right things on paper. And I was so lucky to have friends in the health space and an integrative GP who I worked with for almost 2 years to rebuild my life. But it certainly wasn't something that I wanted to own when it happened because I was so attached to the identity of being a high achiever and a high performer and ticking the boxes of success and making sure that I'd gone to university and got a great job and had purchased a house and had a great partner and I'd lived overseas. And the idea, I think, of burnout, we're talking about it more commonly now as being a workplace phenomenon. And I can understand that because there were workplace elements definitely that contributed to my burnout, but I also know I played a huge part in it. I'd adopted these rules or beliefs or ways of thinking that I thought life had to be done in order to be right. And I think we're in this point of tension where burnout, yes, is work, and we see a lot of that, but we're also subscribing to some really unhealthy things, even like not having an alarm some days. That's also contributing to it. And my journey is definitely, and post-reflection, thinking about what are all the pieces of burnout and not just going, well, it's a workplace problem, so let's fix that. Yeah. And I think that sometimes that's a different way of taking it on.
Yeah, totally. And I think what you're saying about, well, several things, like one, how it creeps up on you. It's not just like bang. I mean, you might have a experience where it gets so bad that you can't handle it anymore, but it's something that's been, over time getting worse and worse. And also that idea that it's not just a workplace. Like our lives are holistic. It's what we're telling ourselves. It's what we're doing outside work. It's like all of those things, like all of our caring roles, everything kind of coming together. And that experience of then it just being too much. I like the name of, so you're about to launch a book. We just talked about it before we jumped on. So exciting. Yay. And I love the name, Wellness Paradox. So let's like unpack the paradox a bit. I mean, then you started to just then, but let's go deeper into that.
Yeah, I think the paradox or the wellness paradox really came about because I wanted to write a wellbeing book or a wellness book that wasn't a self-help book. I think we've got enough of those. I really like sometimes as a wellbeing speaker too, I get put in a box and it's like, you're going to talk about yoga and meditation. Like I'm not going to do that because we know, and that is the paradox. We now more than ever have more information, more resources, more gadgets, more hacks, more products we can purchase to support our wellness, to be well, to have great well-being than ever before. But burnout is increasing, overwhelm is increasing, anxiety is increasing, people are unhappy, life satisfaction isn't where it used to be, especially in the Western world, and we're seeing people no longer want to show up to the workplace in the way that they used to, and we're seeing all these differences. And why is it that right now at our fingertips we have more things available to us than ever before to keep us well, but we're just not? And that's the paradox. Like, where have we gone wrong? What has happened? And how do we get to a point where you can order anything without leaving your house that's supposed to fix you and make you feel better, but it actually doesn't work?
Yeah, totally. Let's dive into what's gone wrong. Maybe we can start in the workplace, looking at how like well-being is framed in the workplace, well-being programs and so forth, and where you think that they're going wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I say this, I don't mean to offend any workplace because I think there's a lack of acknowledgement around everyone's trying. Like, I don't think leaders anywhere are sitting around a table going, how can we make it worse for our people? No one's doing that. But when I first experienced my own chronic stress and burnout in the start of 2018, no one at all was talking about well-being for staff or what that looks like in the workplace back then. And I think if it had been more prominent, then someone might have asked, me more questions than how are you, and me just saying fine, and kept going with the day. And so we have this awareness, and people do want workplaces to be better, and they want to help their staff, and they want people to feel safe and connected and fulfilled, and they want them to do great work, and they want them to feel less stressed, absolutely. But the problem is we have tried to put so many strategies in place that are about the individual and not the conditions. So where we have a symptom versus cause issue, and we are providing things that address the symptoms. People are stressed, they're overwhelmed, they're tired, workload's too high. Let's put on a morning tea. Let's do a resilience program workshop. Let's put on a coffee van so that people can have that pick me up on a Friday. Let's make sure that we have a yoga class once a fortnight people can attend, because that's going to help people feel less stressed or feel more connected, or it'll be a nice little perk for them. And whilst there might be truth in that, you can't downward dog your way out of high workload. It doesn't work like that. So we get out of these yoga classes that our workplaces put on for an hour, and we think, I feel a little bit better. We go back to our computer, we open up our inbox, and there's 200 emails waiting for us, and we've still got to filter through that. Or we have a social gathering on a Friday afternoon, and everyone gets to leave the office at 2:00, and we feel good, we connect, we have a nice time, it's relaxed. But Monday morning, we're still dealing with the same dysfunction, the same lack of accountabilities, the same inconsistencies, the same unsafe workplaces, whatever that might be. And so, yes, we have focused on addressing the symptom, and I'm not saying get rid of morning teas or social gatherings. They do play a role, definitely. But unless we're prepared to also go, and why is this happening? Why are people stressed? Why is workload so high? And look at those things and those conditions at the same time, then we're going to find that we need more quick fixes, because burnout's going to keep increasing. And eventually we're just going to get to a point where it's not working, and we can't afford to do that. We have to help people be well, not because they're at rock bottom or things are hard, although some people are experiencing that, but because we all have a right to feel good, both personally and professionally. And I think sometimes workplaces don't know what to do, and everyone online will say, just put on a yoga class or just have a morning tea. And with desperation, they're trying to do that as well as keep everything else moving.
Yeah. So as you were speaking, it was reminding me, a former job of mine, I was the director at a human rights organization. I love this organization so much. But I started the job, and I was essentially director of 3 separate divisions. And I was so overwhelmed, and I kept on trying all the things to manage it, until finally my great uncle, who has, he gave me a session with his CEO coach. And I told him the thing, and he said, okay, the solution is you resign. I was like, are you serious? People pay you money to say this? And he said, no, what you need to do is resign and renegotiate your job with your boss, because it's literally not possible what you're being asked to do. And the thought had never occurred to me. It was just, how could I manage this better? How could I add, exactly kind of like what you're saying, how could I add things on? But the actual thing that was being asked of me was not really humanly possible. So my question with what you're saying is, how do you approach that then with workplaces when resources are poor, there's increasing demands? How do you have that conversation?
Yeah, I actually really believe that some of the most powerful things we can do is ask our people what they want and what would make their life better and make work easier for them. Because I'm yet to be in a workplace where people don't want to do their job. People actually want to do their job, and they enjoy the work that they do, and they know that it serves a purpose to them. But we can so quickly jump to solutions that we think is the answer, especially as leaders. But unless we've asked our people on the ground, we're guessing, we're making it up. And I see this time and time again. And sometimes we think it has to be this big grand thing. But more often than not, what I find when I go in and I talk to people in small groups and I run qualitative sessions where I say, what do you love about your work, and what are your stresses, and what does that really tangibly look like in your context, and what would you like to see done differently? The solutions they're asking for are possible. They're not saying we want $1 million initiatives that are going to actually make everything magically disappear. It's very simple on the ground things, like we want clear processes. We want to know how to do this, and we want it to be efficient. We want better role clarity and job clarity because we've expanded and grown too quickly and it's got a bit messy. So these things are reasonable and practical and pragmatic, but unless we can push a little bit beyond the idea of, I'm so stressed, or the workload is so high, and we don't have that tangible data, it makes sense to want to jump to, we'll just make sure that everyone gets a nice retreat at the end of the year or a bonus because that'll make things feel better. Because what else do we do? So my first point of call is always go to your people, ask them what it would look like, and help them and let them help you design that. Because I guarantee people have great ideas if we're willing to think differently about how work can look.
Interesting. And I suppose the step before that, though, is they're actually realizing that people in their team are facing overwhelm and burnout. So, and I think people hide that. I know myself, like, I definitely have hidden it several times in my life because, like you said, we identify, if you're a certain type of person, you identify yourself as a high achiever, and so you don't want to admit that you're like struggling to be able to do it. So what do you think, both for people who are listening as individuals, but also people who are listening who are leaders, like what are the signs, do you think?
Yeah, I think most workplaces usually have some type of well-being or satisfaction pulse check or survey that they might be doing. Whether some will do them weekly, whether it's annually, and we usually ask questions around what does your well-being look like, or how stressed are you, or do you feel like you're able to get your job done in the time? And so that's a really easy snapshot to be able to capture to begin with, but it's not enough. We definitely need to go further and ask more questions. And so I always come back to capacity. Do I have the capacity energetically, with resources, with time, to be able to do the things that I'm asked of? Because if we've created an environment for ourselves where we don't get to sleep some mornings without an alarm, where we don't get to fully be present for our family, where we don't get to look after ourselves, and this is what is actually humanly right for us to be able to look after ourselves, be present with our family, then it's a capacity issue. And that capacity is actually hidden underneath language of stress, overwhelm, and burnout. So we've got to get better at going, what do we have capacity for and what don't we? What about me personally? And actually letting some things go and being really, really intentional with what we pick back up.
And when you're working with people in that, my experience is there's usually a pushback on letting go, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. People like to hold on to how they've always done it.
Totally. And I think it's really interesting, and I don't know if you find this, but I found in my coaching that there's also often an identity it's an identity issue. So, I have to do that to be important. I worked with some people to look at their calendar, and it was interesting finding the number of things on their calendar that, if when they were honest, they were actually about I had to be at that meeting to be important kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that, like, how the role of identity and what people don't want to let go of?
Yeah, I think this idea of being productive or getting up at 5 a.m. or making sure our calendar is back to back, we've been told that that's what our self-worth is linked to.
Yes.
So it's the identity of who we are, and also how we're told we're worthy. And we teach people this from such a young age. I was actually a school teacher and a school leader, and we teach this to our young people. You are worthy by how many A's you get. You are worthy by what the results are on your exams. You're worthy by whether or not you go to university. And we're starting to see a shift in this, but we are told from such an early age, even at school, that who we are and our identity is attached to what we achieve that other people can see. And that's where we get this confusion of my self-worth is external. No, it's internal. And so when we start to challenge the idea of not being in the 5 a.m. club, or not attending every meeting, or letting some things go that we used to do, the struggle is actually based on, but who am I without it?
Yes.
And am I safe? And am I okay? And are people still going to think I'm enough? And that, I think, is a huge identity shift we don't talk enough about when it comes to redefining what work is, what success is, and what being well is.
It's such an important point, and I think it's like really the deeper point that we need to look at is what is your identity attached to, and really looking at that and how to unpack that and how to release that. And you can redefine, is it just that what's at your core that is your true identity, rather than these kind of superficial, I'm productive, I'm helpful or overly helpful, whatever it is that gets put on top, and then we get stuck in actions that then we just can't we do all the right things but we can't shift them. What work do you do with people to try to help them to shift those identity pieces?
One of the pieces I think is really essential in the work that I do is helping people understand what success looks like to them. And this is also in the Wellness Paradox, the last 2 chapters. I talk about the power of average and rethinking success. And for so many of us, we've just adopted a version of success. We inherited it. It was passed down, and we haven't actually paused long enough to go, but is that what I believe success to be? What's a successful life for me? And so before we do any identity shift work, we have to actually know what it is that's going to add value to our life and how we want to live that. And when we can define that and be comfortable with that and sit with it and feel safe, then we can start to do the identity pieces that allow that to happen and to bring it to life. But that could take a very long time. It's not instant. You can't go from I get up at 5 a.m. every morning because this is who I am to I just get up when I feel like it and I have slow mornings. And letting your nervous system know that you're safe in both of those situations, it's a big shift. So it happens gradually over time, and you've got to work on the internal, not just the external change.
Yeah, I love that. And you said before something about the not enough, like it being a average or enough.
Yeah.
Tell me that again. I heard it. I wanted to grab it, but then you kept on talking.
One of the last chapters in my book is called The Power of Average.
Yes, tell me
And yeah, so what this is kind of the wrap up, right? If we've designed a world that says you have to achieve these things, and this is what being well is, and this is what success is, and this is what being happy is it always comes with the next goal and the next and the next.
Yes, yes.
And that's why we're tired. That's why it never feels enough. In the workplace, it's about KPIs and financial incomes. In our personal life, you get the career, and then you've got to get the promotion, and then the next promotion, or you buy a house, and then you've got to save for the next house and the bigger one, or you go on a holiday, and then you've got to go on a fancier holiday and a fancier holiday, and the new iPhone comes out, and you've got to get the next phone, or, there's always this upgrade. And I think we've really overcomplicated life, and it's okay to just be average at some things or have some average things. Like, just let it be average. So this is something I've started to shift in the last probably 5 or 6 years post-burnout, is like, where am I competing for no reason? And honestly, it's so freeing to go, I just live in an average house. Like, I don't need to live in the multi-million-dollar mansions, and all. Like, an average house is enough, and that's all we need. And most of my clothes are secondhand, and they're from op shops, and it's average. I don't chase designer labels and feel like I need to do that to prove my worth on something. And I'm a pretty boring person, because it's the average that actually allows us to enjoy the moments in life, because we're not constantly racing for the next thing. And I don't think we do that well enough.
Oh my God, I love that so much. One of my besties and I, we were talking, she'd done this parenting course. And so we were always talking about, like, how could we be better parents? And, you were trying to do this while working full time and all the things. And this course said to her that you only have to get it right 30% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, no way, 30% of the time? So then I was doodling like 30% as I was talking to her. And I was like, shit, this looks like the symbol. So then we were joking that we were going to get like 30% tattooed on our wrist, and we'd look like we were really enlightened because it looked like the symbol. But really, we were just saying we only had to get life right 30% of the time.
Absolutely. Like, just pick one thing to be 100% at, and let everything else be 30%. Like, it'll be okay.
Yeah. And even 100%, to be honest, because like I would love to be an amazing parent 100% of the time. Like, no way. It's not actually realistic. So yes, strive, pick some things that are truly matter to you. But like, even there, like, trying to be 100% is not really.
Yeah. It's just the one thing, like 100% at making lunches this week. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Cool. I love it.
The whole thing.
Yeah. So are there things, let me just have a think about what we've talked about. So once people go into this, like, okay, let's say people are listening and they're part of a workforce, but they're not leaders. How would you encourage them, and they're feeling at least a little overwhelmed? What are some of the processes that you'd recommend for them to start doing? Some of the reflection points and things that you'd recommend that they do. You've mentioned some of them, but let's just kind of go over them.
Yeah, there are a number of things that you can do in the workplace, and I think sometimes it's tricky when maybe your leaders or people around you don't see what you see. And I think this is where we have to be aware of, what am I attached to that's real and what's not? What's in my circle of control and what's not? So again, this is identity work. Sometimes we get so invested in things because our self-worth is attached to being in everything, but it's not really for us. And I was delivering a leadership session this week, actually, and I got asked this question, how do you deal with all of the little stresses that come your way when actually they may not be in your control, and you can't do anything about them, but you've still got to do them as part of your job? And I said, well, one of the mantras we use in our family actually is, it's not that serious. And sometimes we attach a level of seriousness to everything, but some things just aren't that serious. Again, it's a bit like just be a little bit average. And so when we're in our workplace and we're feeling a bit overwhelmed, one of the tasks I started to do was look at my list and go, what is serious? Like, what do I need to do today so tomorrow will be better? What are the things that I can actually wait? What are the things I can delegate? And to be really honest, I wasn't great at this to begin with. And I used to sit with my leader, who was really supportive of me, and go, these are all the things I've got to do this week. Can you work through them with me and say, which is the priority? Like, what do I actually have to do? What could maybe wait? And then she added a list for me, and that list was, why are you even telling yourself you have to do this, Amy? I don't even know where this came from. You're making it up, because that was the high performer in me. And so I think there are different things around, being able to be really clear on what must happen, what we can pause, talking to people, talking to leaders, talking to colleagues. How are you tackling it? What do we need to do? Does the timeline work? Do we have capacity? Because we tend to suffer in silence and think, oh gosh, I can't say I'm not coping, because then people will think I'm not good enough and I'm not a good enough employer, and they'll start to judge my professionalism and whether or not I actually have competence to do my job. And we've got to let that go. We've got to build workplaces where people are healthy and happy to talk about what they're working okay with and what not. And sometimes we wait for something magical to happen so that can exist. But how do leaders know we need it if we don't ask? If we don't speak up, if we don't talk about those things? So I'm a big believer in doing our own work ourselves and going, what must happen, what mustn't, where's the overwhelm coming from, what's it telling us? But am I letting someone know? Like, am I actually telling someone about this, or am I just, they're crossing my fingers, I'll cope and won't collapse?
Yeah, I love that. And I wonder if there's a way to kind of almost kind of put that into your week, like as you're planning your week, reviewing all those tasks and really questioning what's actually crucial and what are you adding that, like you said, I love how you said that you went to your manager and she was like, why are you even doing this? Because when I was in the last organization where I was leading, I would literally be talking people down from doing things constantly. Like,
Yeah,
I don't need to do that. And I think there is so many kind of things that we put on ourselves. So do you personally, like when you plan your week, do you have a process where you do some of these things, where you question, like, do I really need to be doing that, Amy?
Yeah, and it's taken a long time to get comfortable with not doing everything instantly and not thinking everything's urgent, because it's a practice, because we tell ourselves that everything needs to be done now to this extreme level of 100% perfect, and if I don't do it, I'm not good enough. And so we've got to get comfortable with knowing that's not true. And so I actually have a very different way of looking at my week now compared to when I first started working for myself, compared to when I was actually an employee or a teacher and a school leader. So now at the moment, it's a lot more flexible and there's a lot more freedom. And I think if I went back into a corporate role, I would take some of these tips and techniques as well. I actually don't do anything before 8 a.m. Sometimes 9, but 8 a.m. And I have that whole morning from 5 a.m. I don't get up at 5, but it's still in my calendar at 5.
Just in case.
From 5 to 8 a.m. As morning routine. Now, what that routine looks like varies on how I feel. Yesterday, I just went for a walk because I had to be in the city by 8:30. This morning, I went to the gym. On Tuesday, I went for a run. Like, it just looks so different. So I don't have this rigid schedule that I used to follow with 5 a.m. wake up, 5:10 meditation, 5:15 journal, 5:20 coffee, 5:30 on the way to the gym. And that's how strict it was. I now look at my calendar and go, well, what must I do? What must I do for next week? And I time block. But it doesn't mean I'm going to do that thing exactly, because I also go, well, how do I feel and what's happening? Of course, if I have other commitments, booking, speaking, I can't negotiate that. That's not doing. But for my own time. And then I also add in buffer time or rest time.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't do this before at all, obviously. Yeah. And I think and this is what I do advise on workplaces too. And I often hear, as leaders, we always have our door open and we have an open door policy, or we use hot desking and we really encourage collaboration. That's great. I understand all of that. But how are we supposed to get our work done if we're constantly interrupted and there's noise and people around us? So if I ever went back into corporate or into the teaching world, or when I work with leaders and workplaces on this, I say, pick times in your calendar that you call deep work or focus time. You're not available. Close your door. Work, if possible, let people work from home during those deep work and focus times. Maybe if your workplace can, people can choose to do them at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And they don't have to, doesn't have to be between 9 to 5 anymore, because we're seeing such shifts in this. So the things I do now are very different to what I did when I was experiencing chronic stress and burnout. But I think the idea of scheduling blocks, having buffer time, having rest time, and not being so strict really can help with working with how you feel and your energy as well.
Yeah, I love that. And have you read Cal Newport's book, Deep
Mm.
Work? Yeah,
I have, yeah, and so productivity, yeah.
yeah, it's awesome. I agree that those like time blocks, and definitely as a leader, like you can't, because I've coached leaders, and that feeling of like where they're constantly on, that's so stressful and like
Yeah,
absolutely. So I think that's really important. The time blocking, not the time blocking, the taking like buffers.
yeah,
I'm not very good at that, and I think that that's so good. I add it now into my calendar, because I have typically not been good at it. But otherwise, you're feeling like you're constantly kind of rushing from one thing to the
yeah,
next,
yeah.
right?
I even, in terms of blocking, don't off very rarely. And if you go into my calendar, you can't book a meeting on a Monday or a Friday.
Nice.
So I don't take meetings Mondays or Fridays. I work occasionally. I facilitate, deliver keynote on those days if requested. But if you were to go into my calendar and book a meeting, you can't get a Monday or Friday meeting, because I use Mondays to set up and make sure I'm prepared, know what I have to do, and on Fridays it's a wrap up. And so even knowing that I have those 2 days to work how I need to work gives me that ability to be more present Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when I do have meetings and things like this, because otherwise every day it's like chop change, chop change. So even that as a working rhythm is something I've introduced that really helps.
Yeah. And you mentioned about also scheduling in downtime. Do you do that during the day? And if so, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually right now am sitting not at my work desk. I split my laptop around and I'm sitting at my craft desk. So I have a work desk and a craft desk back to back. And this always has a painting or a project or something I'm working on. So sometimes I might go, oh, I just need a 20-minute break. I'll just jump to the other side of the desk and like work on this painting that I'm doing, or do this coloring in, or whatever it is. So that time is in my day in little moments. But I also know from about 3 o'clock, I guess it's the teacher in me, I need that break in the afternoon. I'll go for another walk. I do Sudoku puzzles. I spend time with my cats. I'll do some house things. And so my day has those rhythms where possible to allow me that I know energetically at 3 o'clock. I need a good decent break, and I might come back at 5 to do another hour, but that's about it. So I'm very aware of where my energy peaks and troughs throughout the day now, and I plan work around those things.
Okay, I really love what you said there in terms of, because we're all, and that's the thing, like everybody is unique, but I think for the people listening is really paying attention to how your energy peaks and troughs,
Mm.
because my partner can work into the night, and if
Yeah.
I try that, I will
So,
literally, like, I try it sometimes and it fries me, and so I
yeah.
just can't do it. But I think for everyone, like feeling like, when are you most energetic? When is your body craving that kind of rest? And then as much as you can, planning your day around that. And I love that you do creative projects. That's so cool.
Yeah, I find that actually really helps too. If I feel like my head's heavy, I've got high cognitive load, or I can't think past an obstacle, go and do something completely different.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, go to the movies, do a puzzle, do some painting. This is where we've forgotten that play and joy and fun isn't just for children. We
Yes.
actually need it to help balance everything else. But because we've created these like intense, high pressure environments where we work all of the time, one of the reasons we have this burnout, this stress, this depletion is because we don't have joy in our day. We don't have fun. We don't have time just to do things for the sake of doing them that we enjoy. And we've really limited the idea that that is for children alone when adults need it. And so I think we've got to do that. We've got to encourage that. Like, go and find ways to do that.
Yeah, totally. Because so many people, like, they'll have breaks, and if you're not looking at video, I'm
So,
putting it, in between commas, because then they're just scrolling, or like, checking their bloody LinkedIn or whatever the
yeah,
hell it is. It's not a break.
it's no break.
Like, I think a really deliberate, like, I love getting out into nature, or I like dancing, like
Yeah.
something that's actually not work and is not on a computer or a phone, ideally.
Absolutely, absolutely. The idea of I'm resting when I watch TV at night or when I'm scrolling on my phone, it's not rest. And I know some people don't appreciate that because like that's the only time I have, but we do have time. Like look at your screen time, look at how much time you're spending on it, look at how long you're on social media for. 5 minutes scrolling, you could replace that with 5 minutes of drawing or 5 minutes for a walk around the block or 5 minutes of actually sitting down and just doing some breath work. And the benefits of that would far weigh out 5 minutes of scrolling on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep. So maybe for those of you listening, doing a little bit of an audit of how you're
Yes.
actually resting.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and it's hard, right? Because we want to be on socials, and especially if you're a business owner and you do those things. But I even set my social media apps to 5 minute timers. So after 4 minutes, it goes black and white, and then on 5 minutes, it kicks me out. So even doing something like that, because
Cool.
yeah, even though I know the things, I'm not always that disciplined. So I do use things like that as well.
I use Brick now because I tried all the things
Yeah,
to get myself to stop, but then they're designed to be
yep,
addictive. And like you
yep,
can pretend that it's a problem with your willpower, but we all have problems with our willpower because we try to use it so much. So you might as well, where you can, make it easy. So Brick, if you're listening and you don't know what it is, it's this. I have no affiliation. I just find it
yeah,
useful. You literally get a physical brick and then you set up, like I have a work time schedule where I can't access social media and other things. And then I have a nighttime, which is, this has been a game changer for me. So I can't scroll bloody Instagram or whatever at night. And you literally, if you want to override it, you literally have to go in and like tap the brick, and you
mm,
put it somewhere out of the way. So you make it as, I mean, that's the whole thing about habits, making them and breaking them. If
that's
you
it.
break them, you want to make it as inconvenient as possible. No, super cool. I had a question for you, which, changing subject slightly, and maybe this is my interest as I'm a mum, and you've worked in schools. What's your take on, what schools, teachers, kids, parents, like what promotes well-being for our children and the people supporting them?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, and I want to be really mindful of what I share and what I say here, knowing that schools are doing the best they can and parents are doing the best they can, and the world's gotten complicated. And I love that we have more education and knowledge and language around well-being and what it means to be well. But sometimes I think we are so focused on that we have let go of what else we know children and people need to be able to develop and function and to be able to feel safe. Taking risks, play, being bored, letting our kids fail from time to time, doing things that are hard, even if they don't like it. We need these things to be able to develop and function as full humans. And sometimes we can see, and I see this in adults too, if I have good well-being, I should never be stressed. If I have good well-being, then I shouldn't have to try out things that are hard and make me feel uncomfortable. If I have good well-being, I should never feel anxious. And that none of that is true. Well-being is about knowing that we can adapt to situations, we can thrive in certain areas, we can work with the highs and lows of life. And I think sometimes with children, we've decided that well-being means we're safe and we're happy and everything is easy. And that's not how life is. And so sometimes I worry that with an emphasis on well-being, are we taking away from children the skills they need to develop in order to do life well? And I know we want our kids to feel safe and supported and to feel success. And as a teacher, I absolutely would want that for students as well. But from time to time, failing's okay. From time to time, doing things you don't like is okay, and doing hard things. And, I remember this time where I used to teach kindergarten. I've taught to kindergarten right through to year 10. And I remember a kindergarten prep student, first day, and the parent came up to me and said, "Oh, they're feeling really anxious about school. We're really worried about them starting." And my response to that was, that's normal. That's okay. They've never been to school before. Feeling anxious is a normal response. And we want to jump so quickly to making sure that our children are happy all the time that we're not letting them feel this full experience of what it is to be human. And so sometimes I wonder, with my teacher hat on, how are we going to be able to do both of these things well and let people know and parents know that's okay to fail and to feel anxious and to be unhappy from time to time?
Yeah, I think that's so crucial for all of us, really. Like a key lesson for me, I lost both of my parents in a short amount of time. It was a very traumatic experience, and it taught me something so clearly is like, you can't, like, the only way through is to fully allow whatever is there. So not fighting being anxious or
Yeah,
being sad or whatever, but just fully allowing it. And the more you allow those feelings, the more they come, they wash past you.
yeah,
And I try to encourage that with the children as well. Not this, there is this sort of superficial, like trying to be happy and strong and so forth. that I see sometimes of like trying to make everything positive really quickly. And I think that actually in the long term, in the long run, gets you stuck in
Yeah.
emotions. So that fully allowing, and I love the boredom one that you mentioned as well, because I think we try to overstimulate kids
Yes.
and ourselves, actually, to be honest. We're all overstimulated, whereas just like doing nothing is when your
So
creative
good.
genius comes through. And you can actually, like we said it's kind of tying back to what we said at the start. You actually have to stop and not be doing so much to hear your body and your own wisdom. So yeah, the boredom
Absolutely.
is awesome. I grew up on a boat and I didn't have like
Amazing.
TV or all of those things. So when I see the way that kids are like so overstimulated these days, yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in the country. A birthday treat for us was driving an hour to go to McDonald's. Like I remember that being my that was the thing you did on your birthday. And there, I grew up in the 90s. We had 4 TV channels. No one had internet. We didn't have a lot of money. My mum didn't drive until I was about 8. Like, we just made our own fun.
Yeah,
That's what we had to do.
yeah, totally. And
Be
you're
fun.
probably like way more creative because of it.
That's it.
Yeah, awesome. Is there something that you feel like I haven't asked you that I should have?
Oh, that's such a great question. I mean, we could take this in so many different ways. I think sometimes one of the questions I get asked a lot is, where do I start and what do I do if I feel like if I'm doing everything right, like I was? And I get asked that a lot. I get asked it from individuals. I get asked that question from workplaces. We're already doing all the right things, but it's not working.
Mm.
And my response to that, or my answer to that, is like, I felt like that too. And my integrative GP said, well, obviously you're not doing the right things. And some we don't want to know that, right? We don't, it's like, oh, what do you mean I'm not doing all the right things? And even that idea of using the word right is something that we can get attached to. And my response to workplaces and people is there is no right and there is no one way to be well or happy or successful, and it will change in seasons and change for people. And I think right now we're trying to box it, we're trying to checklist it, we're trying to optimize it and make it all fit into one space. But actually, the idea of being well and successful in the way the world is right now can be defined by you and by the people in your workplace or by a team, and it's okay if that changes. It's okay if what you thought wellness was for you yesterday is not the same as today. And I think, gosh, what I used to do 10 years ago that I could do or 20 years ago at 20 is very different to what I can do now at 40. And we have to be okay with that. We have to go with the seasons of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just released recently a solo podcast episode about like the habits that we do
Mm-hmm.
when we were in our 20s and 30s. And then as a woman, once you hit your 40s, those actually like are so counterproductive. It's so funny. So absolutely. I always like to end these episodes taking it back to sit like the whole notion is to simplify things. And if people listen to this and they feel inspired, so you've started to answer it there, but what's like one thing that you would like it can be a habit or just one thing that they could do this week?
Yeah, great question, because everyone wants to know, right? Like, what's the one thing? Science tells me to answer this question by saying sleep better, sleep more, work more sleep. I ask this question to a lot of people too, what's the one thing everyone should do more for making their well-being better and to help with their wellness? And the answer is always sleep. Like, I think that's one of the most underutilized free things everyone has access to. But it's hard, it's complicated. And the sleep hygiene is a whole thing in itself to learn and develop, and we haven't, again, given ourselves the grace we do sometimes for our children to ourselves to prioritize that sleep. So the science piece in me wants to say just sleep more, but the practical piece in me wants to say, if there's one thing that you can do that's going to benefit you or your well-being or how you feel, it's actually asking yourself, what am I doing for me? And what am I doing because I feel like I have to keep up? Because I feel like I'm competing.
Mm,
And sometimes we just want a quick fix. Like, it's much easier for me to say sleep or learn to meditate, but I don't know if that's what you need. So what I would encourage people to do is just take 5 minutes to go, what am I doing for me because I feel like it's for me? And what am I doing where I'm competing? One of the most superficial things that comes to mind when I say that is I used to go and get my nails done every fortnight. It's self-care, right? Getting a manicure, that's what women are told. We go and get our nails done. But the stress of going to the nail salon and sitting in the noise and the bright lights and having to choose the color and inhale all of those fumes and wait on a Saturday morning, when I think about that now, I'm like, never again am I doing that. No way. And so even that idea of, but manicures are good for self-care, that's what we should be doing, get your nails done, is such an adopted version of what we're told self-care is, but I don't know, maybe that's a stressor for you like it was for me. And as soon as I started to not do that anymore, to stop doing it, oh my gosh, what a more relaxing Saturday morning I was having.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I love sitting by the water where I live with a journal and my cappuccino and like
Mm,
journaling on these questions. So maybe that's the invite for everyone. Like, just take some time to yourself. You could even take a photo and send us both on
yeah,
social
that'd be
media
nice.
if you want. But yeah, take that time to reflect on that, on that, and see what it is that you could. One thing maybe that you could let go of. That's a great idea. Thank you so much. Now, of course, we want to know your book's about to come out, and
Mm.
where can people find you? Where can they buy the book? We'll put all the links in the show notes as well. And how
Yeah,
can people work
lovely.
with you?
Yeah, it's called The Wellness Paradox. So you should be able to find it in bookstores, maybe airports, definitely on Amazon. And you can grab a signed copy from me. amygreen.com.au is my website. I'm Amy Green on LinkedIn as well as Instagram, so you can find that. And working with me, keynote speaking, coming into workplaces, and then also that individual coaching element as well. If you're thinking, gosh, what does success look like for me as someone who wants to be well and also create a life that is a little bit average at times, right? I think that's what we need to do more of. So all of my info is on my website at amygreen.com.au, or just find me on socials as well. More than happy to have a chat.
Awesome. Well, it was so great having you on. I loved it. Like, such a great conversation. I'm going to have a coffee and journal on that question tomorrow morning.
Yeah, yeah, let me know what you come up with.
Yeah, I will. I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's your turn. Take what you've learned today and put it into action. Try the habit, run the experiment, and actually track how you go. I'll be doing it right alongside you and sharing on socials, so come find me there. Links are in the show notes. Tell me what's working, what isn't, and what questions are coming up. I genuinely want to know. And if today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so we can keep optimizing our health together, one simple step at a time. Take care, and I'll see you next week.